Hi everyone, this is Kelly. Just a quick show note before we begin. As we were recording this episode, about halfway through it or right in the middle, we had some audio issues. So for about 15 minutes, we completely lost Kristen's audio, which is unfortunate because she was the one telling the story. So you'll suddenly notice that she'll stop talking and it'll be me because I had to re-record it and fill in the audio. So if you're wondering why the speaker changes a couple of times in the episode, right in the middle and then again at the very end, that's why. But I believe we fixed what the issues are and we will be good to go next time. Okay, thanks. Hi, I'm Kelly.
I'm Allison.
I'm Leah.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is Fear and Wine. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Fear and Wine. We are a podcast about horror TV shows, movies, and more. If it's scary, creepy, or disturbing, we're watching it, talking about it, and pairing it with a glass of wine. We are halfway now through our Lovecraft Country coverage, so we're going to start on episode 5 today, which is called Strange Case. And this is a very strange episode. There's a lot of just weird stuff happening in this one. So our question for this one, and you'll see how it ties into the episode when Kristen covers it, is if you could be anyone else in the world for 48 hours, real or fictional, who would it be and why?
I'm not particularly excited about my answer.
Okay.
I thought a long time about it because I thought, okay, you have celebrities to choose from, you have historical figures to choose from. And I mean, if you could pick anybody, it's hard to choose just one. And then I thought, could I choose my dog? Because I'd kind of like to know what it'd be like to be
That's
my
a good
dog.
one, actually.
You know, I don't know if I'd want to do it for 48 hours because I don't know if I'd want to like eat that food. But I don't know. Has anybody seen the episode of Punky Brewster where she switches places with her dog?
No.
No?
I don't remember.
I'm sure I
Punky
did, but I
Brewster
forgot
like that,
it.
though.
Oh
I
my
probably did, yeah.
Oh, well, it was more like a Freaky Friday situation where she like fully knew she was in the dog's body. But anyway, I think I was going to go with like, you know, a really famous rich celebrity because I thought I would love to know what it's like to just have unlimited amounts of money and be able to do whatever I want and, you know, be gorgeous and have a perfect body and all that stuff. But the more I thought about it, I was like, I mean, that seems kind of boring. Like, what do you learn from that, really? So I guess I settled on my grandmother. I think I would like to switch places with her. She's going to be 95 this year. And I just thought how much life she's lived and how much she's seen in her lifetime. So I don't know. I thought it'd be neat to just kind of get an idea of what she knows and the type of things that she's learned in her life.
Yeah, her memories and stuff. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I get that.
I don't know if she'd want me to know everything, but but she's awesome. So I think she'd be a cool person to switch places with for a couple days.
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah.
I like that too. Mine, I have 1.5. And the half will make sense. So my first one is Keke Palmer, just because, I mean, I grew up with her. Like, she and I are like the same age. So it's like watching her grow up and I just seeing everything she had to go through and still being the person she is and just being so, I don't know,
She's
real.
hilarious.
Yeah.
She's great, yeah.
And she made all that on her own, you know, so just like from a child. And she's not one of those child actors that went the opposite direction, I guess. So I think I'd be her. But the half is I would definitely for 48 hours or more want to be one of Lisa Vanderpump's dogs.
Oh,
That's what I was thinking. When Leah said dog, I was like,
100%.
it would definitely be a Vanderpump dog.
That
it would
would
have
be
to,
amazing.
I would do it for the rest of my life if I could. Like, you are getting treated so well.
Oh, yeah.
So well.
You're getting carried everywhere.
Yeah.
You got
That's a
Alfie,
good
you have a
one.
whole wardrobe. Yeah.
Oh, those dogs live better than I
That's
could
what
ever
I'm
dream
saying.
of.
Oh, for sure.
They don't have to worry about a thing.
No.
Okay, so mine is, I guess, not too far off from Allison. So I actually picked Andy Cohen. Also,
Oh,
you get to meet
Bravo.
all the housewives.
Right, because so here's why. Because we
it.
know, and we've seen proof of this, because this happens to him all the time, that all of the major Bravo celebrities and all the long-running housewives have his personal cell phone, and they are constantly like calling him and texting him. And especially if I was Andy Cohen in like the mid to late aughts years when the housewives were at their peak, all of the gossip he has to know, and just like, and I know they're calling to complain and bitch about stuff, but just think of all of just the juicy secrets he hears and everything he knows. And I know it drives him crazy because he's been doing it for years, but I would want to do it even honestly for a week or two,
And
because I feel like I'm not going to even get enough gossip in 48
Yeah, a
hours.
day
no,
might not
you
be
do you
enough.
think
Yeah.
he ever
Yeah.
like brings something up on like a reunion and they look at him like, Andy, I thought this was between us? Like, do you think he ever lets things slip that were like just meant to stay in the DMs?
Kind of yes and no. Kind of like you can tell there's moments where he and Bethany start talking back when they were really close and she was still on the show, and they would start talking about private talks they have because they became really good friends. And so every once in a while there would be like, I don't know, just a little moment or something he'd drop in, and they'd have almost like this little you had to be there side conversation that
Oh,
nobody
right.
else would understand.
Yeah.
So that would happen, yeah.
Huh.
And then I think, what was it, this latest Summer House reunion, Lisa Vanderpump was calling him as he's recording it. So it's just, I'm like, God, this is so great. He gets this all day. He's like, oh, Lisa Vanderpump keeps calling me.
That is so. He needs Kelly to screen his calls.
Yeah. I would love it. I'm like,
That's
okay,
funny.
just tell me everything. I'll take notes and
Right.
pass it on to Andy.
Right.
Yes, that would be great. Yes,
That's
that one's
I
mine.
fantastic.
like that.
That's a good one.
I like that too. I struggled a lot with this because I genuinely couldn't. I had an idea, but I can't say it. And we talked about they know. These three know what my real choice would be, but I'm not going to say it here. So I struggled, and then I decided I would want to be Anthony Bourdain, but specifically early Bourdain when he visited Vietnam for the first time. So that's the day that I would want to experience, because he always said it was his most favorite place and the best food he had, and it was one of his early no reservations, or no, was that the first show? I think it was.
think so, yeah.
Episodes, and how much he learned and grew from that experience. So I think that would be a really fun to get to travel and see something through his eyes for the first time.
That's a
That'd
really
be
good
cool.
one. Crazy to me that he could even pinpoint like a favorite place out of all the places that he's been.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, he talks about this bowl of noodles that he had sitting on a stoop in the street in Vietnam as the best meal he's ever had. So
Oh wow.
I think that's pretty cool for someone who's been to probably all of those Michelin star restaurants and all of that, to say that was his favorite. I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think, honestly, even being a celebrity chef or just a high-end chef for 48 hours, because I know it's crazy. It's got to be super stressful, but what is that like? If I only had to do it for 2 days, I don't know, that might be an experience I would be willing to
Kinda
have.
fun. Well, for me, it'd be fun. I like to cook, so I'd be fascinated. You'd learn so much just in those 2 days that you could bring home. So I think that'd be nice.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Cool. Yeah, I had a little Bourdain obsession for maybe, I don't know, like 3 months. I read every book that was written by him. I read all the biographies. I read all his books and watched all of the series and kind of blew through all of it. But he was such a fascinating person, and he was a person who kind of walked through their dark night of the soul and didn't make it through. And I find that fascinating. So he's a sad, tragic figure.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah,
On a
great
lighter
answers.
note. So are you guys ready to talk about Strange Case?
Yes,
Lovecraft?
this is. I think these next 2 episodes are really cool, but in very different ways. Yeah.
I agree. I love this episode for the storyline, but this episode by far has the most body horror of any of the episodes, I feel like. And so for me to have to watch it so
I know.
closely.
As I was watching it, I was like, this one, how did this one land on Kristen?
I had to look away a couple. I just, to be honest, I covered my eyes a couple times, but it's okay. I powered through, and it's one of my favorite episodes. It ends up being one of my favorite episodes. So I do want to issue a content warning for anyone listening, though, because this episode contains heavy themes of racism and bodily autonomy, and there's some sexual scenes that might bother some people. I don't know, but if it's not too much, there is a sexual assault scene as well. So if that's something that you just, is a trigger for you, then probably don't listen to this episode. But if you're okay listening to all the gory details, we're going to get started.
We're pairing this revenge-filled episode of Lovecraft Country with Vengeance Red Blend. Vengeance is an intense, full-bodied California red blend with aromas of black cherry, wild berries, and smoky spice. The taste is rich and delicious with flavors of currant, licorice, and oak that linger on the palate. This wine pairs well with red meats like beef and lamb and spicy foods. Enjoy! For more information about us and all of the wines that we feature, visit our website at fearandwine.com. And make sure you follow Fear and Wine wherever you listen to podcasts so that you don't miss a new episode. And if you like us, please leave us a 5-star rating and review. Thanks.
So this is episode 5 of Lovecraft Country, and it is titled Strange Case. And we do open on Ruby waking up in bed, but she is not herself. Literally, she is now in the body of a white woman played by Jamie Newman. It's kind of shocking and really disorienting when she wakes up and she starts staring at herself in horror in the mirror. She's like trying to wake herself up. She thinks she must still be sleeping. And, you know, in all of her horror, she ends up running outside in her robe, and she does look crazy on the street. But she looks into the reflection in the glass, and she still sees this white woman in the window reflection. So she's really freaking out. She ends up in all of her frenzy running into like a young black boy who was holding popcorn, and she ends up knocking it out of his hands, and they both fall on the ground together. And in that moment, immediately the cops race up to the sidewalk, and the white Ruby and the boy both instinctively get down on their knees and put their hands behind their head. Kind of like what we saw with the people after Letty had blown the windows out. They did the exact same thing. So we're getting this idea that at that time, Black people knew when the cop showed up, this is what you're supposed to do, or else, you know, probably something bad is going to happen to you. So I think that's something to take note of. So the cops show up and they end up roughly throwing the boy on the car, and they want to make sure that Ruby knows, the white Ruby, that this boy can't hurt her anymore. So they immediately assume this kid did something to her, and they start asking her, what did he do to you? And they get ready to hit him with a billy club. And in that moment, Ruby stops them. She's like, I just got lost. This boy didn't do anything to me. So the cops take her in the cop car, and they start talking about her husband, and that her husband says he's been very worried about her. And this is confusing for me in that moment because, you know, we don't know who this white woman is supposed to be or why she would have a husband. And she gets very upset and says that they can't bring her back and that he did something to her. They say she just needs her pills. That's what he had told them. So all of a sudden, though, in the backseat of the car, her body begins kind of like jerking and making these cracking sounds, and she starts to look absolutely terrified. For those of you who watched the second season of Them, did that kind of remind you of what started to happen to those people?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right?
That and when it happens in Stranger Things.
Yeah, yeah.
One season of Stranger Things.
You're so right. Exactly. It's like it's kind of a similar situation. So that cracking and jerking motion, almost like someone's either about to break apart or something along that line. So they get her home, quote unquote, and this like Aryan looking gentleman who presumes to be her husband carries her in the house and upstairs. She's still jerking in pain, and he tells her to stop fighting it. He turns the TV up really, really loud so that the neighbors won't hear her screaming. And as she pulls her body across the floor while it cracks and jerks, we see that the floor is covered with plastic tarp, like Dexter style. So this was this man was expecting this to happen. Cracks and bleeding begin appearing on her face, and blood starts kind of pouring out of it. The Aryan husband, we learn, is named William, and he pulls her by her legs and flips her over. Kelly, has William been in any previous episodes? Am I missing
Yeah,
some?
he's been in all of them. He wasn't. Well, he greeted them.
So
at the
he's
door.
the Aryan that greeted them at the door. Okay, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's
I don't know
always
why
with
I thought this-
Christina.
I think I have your blonde blindness all of a sudden because
It's hard. Yeah.
oh my gosh.
I'm telling you, it happens when
I thought it was
not...
different people. So that's the
No, I'm telling you, something about when the hair is too blonde, no highlights, nothing. I cannot
no
tell.
highlights, pasty skin. I was
I don't know
confused.
how I got through that House of the Dragon. They made it work though. I didn't have
Oh,
any. I
you're
didn't have no
right.
confusion there.
Although the one in House of Dragon did look like Laura Dern. But anyway, I digress.
Yes, yeah, there was. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so anyway, William, who we know from, I don't know why. Like, I was like, I think I know him, but yet he looks somewhat different. But anyway, he has rubber gloves up all the way up to his like elbows and a knife, and she starts begging for her life. And he says to her, quote, "Metamorphosis is not death." And as he plunges the knife into her body, into her chest, and pulls down on her torso, her mouth is open, and we can clearly see an eyeball in there, like someone else is inside her body.
Ew.
And in that moment, he begins kind of pulling her flesh apart at her torso and ripping pieces of it off. And that's one part where I almost had to cover my
Ew.
eyes. So it's pretty gross.
That sounds awful.
Yeah. We immediately shift over to Montrose, sitting in a chair in Letty's house. And Letty and Tick are walking in, and they immediately notice that Yahima is gone, along with Titus's pages. Tick immediately goes like berserk, like into this furious rage, to the point where it was scary. Like he starts beating his father to the point that I thought that he was going to kill him, like really pounding his face in. So Letty ends up having to get help from other men in the house to come and help her pull Tick off of his father because he is absolutely furious. And you could tell she's scared in this moment. She's looking at him with fear. Didn't expect this kind of just loss of control. So back at William's brownstone, we see Ruby in the bed looking beautiful and naked and very much like herself. So she's back in her own body. He starts talking about caterpillars, metamorphosis into butterflies, and that he wanted to apply it to humans and was laughed at by the academic community. He says that was until he met a disgraced professor called Hiram Epstein. He said Epstein created magical doorways. He then talks about some nonsense in that language of Adam thing, and I was confused by that. So, Kelly, did you understand what that was about? He's speaking so I don't think there was an explanation of it, but he's speaking in the language of Adam, and they don't give us any subtitles or anything. So
no, they
idea.
never do, because I don't think we're supposed to.
Okay. Making sure, because you know that one time that I watched that movie and didn't know there were subtitles at the bottom and missed half of it. So Ruby is terrified and thinks she's dead. She actually asks him this, but he reassures her that it was a potion and that it wears off. She begins to tell him that she felt a certain power in the white skin. She said that even though she was like acting crazy, that people really didn't look at her in a crazy way, and they looked at her differently than they did in her own skin. He tells her that she is free to go. And he leaves, but he leaves a little bottle of that potion just in case she wants to steal it. So she actually like kind of eyes it warily, but then we hear the words of it's Ntzoke. Does anyone know how to pronounce that? I just don't want to say it wrong.
No, I'm not sure what that is.
Soke Shang, I'm going to say.
Okay.
So we hear the words of her poem titled For Colored Girls Who Considered Suicide. And
okay. I've never known how to. I actually did a monologue from that play but I've never known. I don't think I've ever really known how to pronounce the author's name.
The author, and I feel bad. I don't want to ruin it, and I probably just did. But I'm going to read you this little excerpt from the poem just so you guys can get an idea of what is playing in the background. Again, this is playing in the background. First when we see Ruby, but then it turns into that same white woman walking down the street, well dressed, but now she has her hair up and she's looking like made up and she looks really happy. And so we can see that Ruby did end up taking the potion. I was confused at first because, again, this woman, I didn't think it was the same woman that we saw in the beginning, and then I realized it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
from
it took me a minute.
2?
No. So the beginning of this episode, when she first sees herself and her hair's down and she's crazy, this is the same woman from that beginning, right? It's just that her hair's up and she has makeup on now.
Yes,
correct?
And it's the same woman that was the gamekeeper in episode 2. They had the dogs. It's that same woman.
Oh, I didn't even realize that. Okay. Wow. Do you remember her name? Because I don't know why I didn't write it down. Vivian,
I don't know if we ever got her a name.
We do get a name, and I'm so sorry. I hope it might be in my notes somewhere. So if we have to backtrack, we will. But I think it begins with a V, and I just can't remember what it is. It's either like Veronica or Vivian or something like that. But anyway, I digress. Back to the poem. The poem is somebody, anybody, sing a black girl's song. Bring her out to know herself, to know you, but sing her rhythms. Karen, struggle, hard times, sing her song of life. She's been dead so long, closed in silence so long, she doesn't know the sound of her own voice, her infinite beauty. She's half notes, scattered without rhythm, no tune, sing her sigh.
Sing the song of her possibilities, sing a righteous gospel, the making of a melody, and let her be born and handled warmly. I am outside Chicago, and this is for colored girls who have considered suicide, but are moving to the ends of their own rainbows. All the while this poem is being recited, Ruby is walking around Chicago, going wherever she pleases, and just living her best white lady life. It's like that Eddie Murphy SNL skit where he was white for a day. Later that night, we see Tick nursing his wounds on his hand from beating up his father when Letty walks in to check on him. She gives him a roll of film from where she took pictures of the pages that they took from Titus's vault. Tick thanks Letty for stopping him when he was beating up his father. Letty tells him that seeing that side of him did scare her. Tick feels bad because he doesn't want her to be scared of him, and he pulls Letty towards him and kisses her, and then the two of them have sex. Back over at Ruby and William's place, Ruby is taking a bath and singing happily to herself after having what may be the best day she has had in a very long time, because she got to be a white lady for a day. Ruby sees William watching her from the doorway, and she asks him why, out of all the thousands of color girls he could have picked from, did he choose her to share his magic with. William walks to the tub and starts to sponge bathe Ruby, and he tells her that the first time he laid eyes on her was the first time in a while that he had felt magic when there was none. He then tells her that he will soon need a favor from Ruby for a woman friend that he owes. But until then, she is free to do as she pleases and go as she pleases in whatever skin she'd like. William then asks her, "You saw that I left you some money on the nightstand. Why didn't you take it?" Ruby tells him that she didn't have to. She enjoyed her entire day using the only currency that she needed, whiteness. The next morning, Ruby is dressed in her white skin and body. She walks into Marshall Fields to finally get that job that she has always wanted. Her resume, the same resume that the real Ruby has, is very impressive to the hiring manager. Ruby tells him that her name is Hillary Davenport and that she is from a tiny town in Maine. Unfortunately for her, this manager is also from Maine, so she has to quickly change the subject to cover up the fact that she just made that up. The manager, who is kind of a strange little guy, asks Ruby/Hillary if she is okay with working alongside coloreds. Ruby says she's fine with it, but as she's answering, her body starts to make that cracking sound and twitching, and she knows that her temporary skin shell is about to break and fall off. Ruby starts to look in her purse for the potion when the hiring manager offers her the position of assistant manager. Ruby jumps up at the excitement and accepts the position, but then she quickly does her best to get out of there as fast as possible. But only after the manager gives her an unnecessary weird hug. And in her rush out, she drops the potion, but thankfully, Ruby is able to get away into the dark freight elevator before her skin suit falls completely off. We are then taken to an apartment in the Caprini Green apartment complex where Montrose is visiting a friend. This friend is the gay bartender that we've seen a couple times in previous episodes. We quickly learn that this man and Montrose are in fact lovers when Montrose walks in and doesn't say anything to him and just immediately takes off his clothes and starts to have sex with him. The following morning, Ruby, dressed as a white woman, Hillary Davenport again, starts her job at Marshall Fields. One of the first things she does is talk to the black salesgirl, Tamara, and reminds her to stay at the counter to make sure that she can help the customers. Ruby then gives Tamara a little pep talk and tells Tamara, no matter what, they can't take away your education achievements from you. And Tamara tells her that she only has a 7th grade education, which surprises and pisses off Ruby, who is very educated and applied for this same job. Later in the back room, Ruby and the other white ladies are chatting and trying on clothes, and Ruby/Hillary asks the ladies if Paul, and that's their manager's name, that hired her, if he's ever gotten fresh with them. They laugh at the question because they find Paul to be very straight-laced and dull. The ladies then turn up the radio in the break room and they start dancing, and they're impressed with how well Ruby/Hillary can move her hips and how she dances like a color girl. One of the ladies then mentions how she's hoping that she doesn't have to see any more Tamaras coming into work there. Ruby says, well, I'm fine with it as long as they're more qualified than Tamara. And one of the ladies says, well, of course she's unqualified. She's a Negro. Another one of the girls then gets a great idea and says that they should ask Tamara to take them to a club on the south side. She says it would be fun, just like a safari. Ruby tells them that there's nothing special about the south side. Trust her. The girls are shocked but excited to learn that Ruby/Hillary has hung out on the south side before. After work, the white ladies, along with Ruby, are walking out and they see William, and he's all dressed up and looking hot, and he's leaning against an expensive car waiting for Ruby. Their mouths drop when they learn that he is with her. William tells Ruby that he is ready to call in the favor. He needs her to attend a party for Miss Braithwaite tonight. He tells her that he has a gift for her in the back seat. So then Ruby opens this beautifully wrapped box to find inside of it a housekeeper's uniform. So this is what she needs to wear for the party tonight. She will be back to herself as Ruby, and she will be serving at the party. We cut now to that night at the party, and it's at the lodge that's somewhere in the Chicago area, and it's all white men. And we hear people talking about stolen pages, and then we see that police captain, Lancaster, the one that kidnapped Christina in a previous episode. And he is the one that is, I guess, the head of that lodge. Lancaster then snaps his fingers to summon Ruby over to him so he can take some hors d'oeuvres, and Ruby looks annoyed and uninterested, but she's taking in all the conversations she's hearing as she goes around the room. Back in the kitchen at the party, Ruby spots Christina, who is hiding, trying to stay out of the way and not be seen because she knows she's not supposed to be there because she's a woman. Ruby goes to Christina and asks her what she wants from her, and Christina hands her a stone and tells her to hide it in the police captain's office. Ruby is incredibly scared because she was not aware that there were any police there at that party. So now things have changed for her. Christina tells Ruby that if she cares for William at all, she will do this, because William is the rightful heir to this lodge, and the captain tried to kill him and take his seat. She tells Ruby that the Captain Lancaster believes that he succeeded in killing him, but that William survived the attempted murder with Christina's help. Christina places the stone in Ruby's hand, and we see on the stone that there's a symbol or rune carved into it. Over at Letty's house, Tick and Letty are in her basement, dark room, and Tick has fallen asleep at the table, surrounded by photos and different papers, and Letty is developing more photos. Tick is having a dream of his escape from the lodge in Artem, back in episode 2, when he followed the apparition of his great-great-great-grandmother out of the burning building. Only this time now when he dreams about it, he just gets close to the door, and just before they're able to get out of the building, she turns around and says something to him, and he stops running to try and understand what it is that she's saying. And because he stops, he starts to catch on fire, which causes him to bolt up from his nightmare. Seeing this, Letty goes over to check on him, and she looks at everything he has spread out on the table. She sees that he's trying to figure out the alphabet for the language of Adam. His ring that Christina gave him in episode 2 in the lodge has his initials engraved in it in the language of Adam. Plus, they have a piece of paper where they figured out that all of the letters in the word protection in the language of Adam. So this gives him a starting point, which he's going to, I guess, use to try and wordle an entire language together and figure out all of the writings and just hope the language of Adam coincides with how English works. So on the same paper that says protection, there's a symbol, and it's that same symbol that's carved into the stone that we saw Christina give to Ruby to hide in the chief's office. Letty sighs and says that this would have been much easier with Yahima's help, but she understands why Montrose let her go. Keeping her against her will would have made them just as bad as Titus. Tick now has to break it to Letty that Montrose didn't just let Yahima go, but that he killed her. Letty is shook by this info, and she's now convinced that the pages and the language of Adam, this magic, all of it are the work of the devil, and it's corrupting all of them. Back at the party at the lodge, Ruby is able to sneak away to the captain's office and stashes the stone in a drawer. While she's in there, she hears the voice of a man weakly calling out for help from a closet. Ruby opens the closet to find a man tied up and bleeding, and he has clearly been there for a few days. And we know for sure that he's been there for at least a few days because he was in there when Christina had been taken to the lodge by the cops. And because she heard him that day, she heard moaning coming from a closet, and she just kind of peeked through the slats but then ignored it. Suddenly, Ruby hears voices just outside the door, so she jumps into the closet to hide next to the man. 3 men, including the lieutenant, are now in the office talking, and we hear them talking about Pages and Winthrop's estate and Christina and the orrery. The next day now, Ruby is back at work in her white body as Hillary, and she starts scolding Tamara about a shoe display and telling her because she's black, she has to be 10 times better than the white people. Her voice starts to raise, and as she's telling Tamara about how effed up the world is, her manager who hired her, the guy, Paul, he comes over and asks if everything is okay. Ruby tells him everything is fine, and Tamara was just telling her about how she plans to take them all out for a night on the town on the south side. We then go to a fun scene where Montrose and his lover are with a bunch of his lover's friends, and they're all getting ready for a big drag show, and they're putting on makeup and wigs and getting fabulous. Elsewhere on the south side, though, Tamara and her white coworkers, including her manager Paul, are out at a little club drinking and dancing with black people. Ruby, currently in her white lady skin, starts to feel the change coming on, and she has the bottle of the elixir on her, but she decides not to take it. Instead, she goes out to the alleyway where it's dark and completely empty and lets her white skin come off. This moment, to me, is probably the most gory of the body horror scenes, this and maybe the end. All the flesh is gone, and Ruby is covered in blood and slime. She puts on a coat and starts to leave when she hears a woman in distress trying to get away from a man. She peeps through a hole in the fence and sees that her male manager has a young black woman out back just outside of a club, pushed up against the wall, and he is trying to sexually assault her. Thankfully, the woman is able to bite down on him hard on his face, causing him to pull away in pain, giving her just enough time to flee. Back at home, Ruby is sitting on the couch, naked and wrapped up in a blanket, but still covered in blood and gunk, when Christina walks in. Ruby says to her, "You're not William. That's the only door in this house that locks. What's in the basement?" Christina sits next to Ruby and tells her, "I've been where you are, disillusioned and pissed, Disgusted by a world not built for you, Ruby tells her to shut the fuck up. You cannot possibly relate to who I am. I've spent enough time on your side of the color line to know that the only thing you white women are disillusioned by is yourselves. Christina says, you're right. We want to be you and you want to be us. But you misunderstood William's invitation. It wasn't just to be white. It was an invitation to do whatever the fuck you want to do. That's the currency of magic. Unmitigated freedom. Christina hands Ruby another bottle of the potion and asks her, who are you really when uninterrupted?
Back in her white body, Ruby is quitting her job at Marshall Fields and simultaneously begins seducing Mr. Hughes. She starts telling him that she has to quit because she's so attracted to him and she needs to act on these feelings, and she knows she can't do it if she works there. So we can kind of tell what's going on. And in this moment, she tells him she likes to be in control, and she ends up tying his hands behind his back. She pulls his belt off and puts it around his neck to kind of pull him like it's almost like a dog leash, and pulls his pants down, like unzips, drops to the floor. And at that moment, that Cardi B song Money starts firing back up in the background. And this is the part that is the major trigger warning. She begins torturing Mr. Hughes. She takes off one of her heels. And again, trigger warning if you don't want to hear about sexual assault. She takes off one of her heels and she uses the heel to violently rape Mr. Hughes. And it is horrifying. As much as I hate Mr. Hughes and I love Ruby, in this moment, I was horrified. She takes the heel and she continuously jams it up the back of him.
Now, to be fair, this isn't like a block heel. It is more of a stiletto. It is a thinner heel. Just if you're trying to get the visual of how painful this is, I will say it's a thinner heel. It's not like a boot heel or anything like that.
But a thinner heel like stabs.
Yes, but it's not. Yeah, it's not anything chunky. I don't know. I'm just trying to get you a visual of the heel.
Yeah.
So as the heel gets bloodier and bloodier from what she's doing, her skin starts to fall off in those chunks, and she's becoming her true self. Ruby's coming out, and she stands up, and she actually turns him over and looks him in the eyes, and she said, I wanted you to know that an N-word bitch did this to you. And then she turns around and walks out as pieces of white flesh continue to kind of fall off her as she's walking out the door.
Oh, man.
That was a powerful moment. So back at the house, Letty is enjoying a bubble bath, and Tick walks in. She confesses that she's afraid to fall for him given their past and the fact that he was just about to go back to Florida. He admits to her that there was a girl named Gia back in Florida, and he wasn't sure, but he knows that she's really not the person for him, and that he was with her before Korea, and that he didn't have any real examples of how to love someone in the right and healthy way, and he was afraid to stay with Letty in case he would hurt her, because he was afraid that he's just not a good partner. So he was going to go back to kind of a bad situation because he felt that that was all he was good for in that moment. Now, he brings up her name, so the fact that her name was dropped makes me think she's going to pop up later, like it's a little foreshadowing, but we will see. So back to Ruby, and she's now clean and freshly dressed as William arrives, and she's herself again. And as William walks in, she actually asks him why he and Ms. Braithwaite are always coming and going through this one door that goes down to the cellar. She's confused. And just as he gets close to her, he gasps, and he begins jerking and cracking. And as William splits apart, Ms. Braithwaite comes out and Ruby yells, "You've been William this whole motherfucking time?" Really loud. And in the dark room, we see that now it immediately flips back to the dark room. We see that Tick has been working on that cipher of the language of Adam and reads the pages, and he jumps up and appears to have broken the code. Like, he is excited.
He jumps up and runs to the phone and dials the operator and asks to be connected to a 14-digit number or something. So maybe he's calling out of the country. As he waits for the connection, a tear falls from his eye. After a few rings, the phone is answered and Tick asks, "How'd you know?" A female voice replies, "Do you believe me now?" And Tick yells back, "How'd you know? How did you know that, damn it?" The female voice says, "You should have listened to me." Tick then asks, "What are you?" And then the line disconnects, and the camera pans down to Tick's shaky hand, where he's holding a piece of paper where he has decoded the word die. And the episode ends. All right. So we will be back next week with episode 6. And that is another fun one, very different from this one, a complete diversion from this whole story, actually. So we're excited to cover that one. So till next time, bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
For more information about our episodes, follow us on Instagram at Fear and Wine Pod. And if you have a fun discussion question that you'd like for us to answer on the podcast, send it to us at fearandwinepod@gmail.com.